Last week, we looked at the second of the 4 biographies of Jesus and how it begins. We looked at the Gospel of Mark and how Mark begins his story, because the way every story begins matters. It focuses our attention, it steers us in a certain direction, and the way that each of these biographies of Jesus begins sharpens our focus on what it is that they want to teach us most and let us see most about who Jesus is and what God is doing. So with Mark was really tapping into this whole culture that for hundreds of years had been waiting for God to do something that God had been promising for over 500 years. And that promise was to send a Savior, send someone who's going to change everything for his people. And these people had this heightened awareness. They were waiting on bended knee for this to happen. And in a moment, Mark captures this sense and anticipation of waiting to the extent where it became a fever, kind of a pitch of waiting. So when Mark begins his gospel, he begins with this sense of waiting and the fact that God has basically said, in Jesus, the wait is over. So waiting is all done when Mark begins his gospel. But Mark is quick to point out with John the Baptist that waiting also means working. It means that we have to do things to prepare, to work, in order to realize that the waiting is over and God has brought the end to this waiting. So Mark shows us through John the Baptist what it means to work, what it means to prepare for Jesus coming. And he shows us that part of that has to do with us repenting and us sealing a relationship with God from our end. Read the beginning verses of Mark and you can see how this plays out. This coming week we jump into the Gospel of Luke, and what is it that Luke does that none of the other Gospel writers do? Because each one does something different. I look forward to looking at it with you.